they had. And we're going to start out with Dr. Galicia. Now, I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself as far as your pain management expertise.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Lana Juan de Galicia. I'm a servant of the Lord. That's the first thing I would have to say. Thank you, Lord, for putting me in this position. And I'm a mother of 4, and all teenagers. But I'm actually a pain management specialist. My primary specialty is anesthesia, and I found that there's a need for providers in pain management. So I got into that, did my fellowship at UC Davis, and started their medical education for pain program at UC Davis, and finally opened up my own practice down in Southern California. But anyway, I was tasked to talk about proper hydration. And what do we have here in Vasayo, the ingredients that we have in our Vasayo products, that's critical in providing proper hydration. And I have to tell you this, just to give you the basic physiology on hydration. Water and electrolytes are of major importance in the wellness or the well-being of human beings or other living things. And I have to use the term or the rule 60-40-20. If you'll remember that, the rule 60-40-20. 60% of average adults' human body actually has 60% water. 40% of that water is within the cells, and 20% is in plasma or the blood cells. And I have to tell you that this is critical to know that 80% of the brain is made up of water. 92% of the blood is made up of water. So, water carries vital nutrients and oxygen to other parts of the body, and it helps convert food to energy, and also helps with regulation of body temperature. Now, a tilt in the balance of these can actually result in dehydration, and dehydration is such a big problem. In fact, I'm glad that you asked me to explain dehydration and hydration, because it's so personal to me, because one of my favorite uncle actually died from dehydration in the Philippines. So, again, going back to the tilting in the balance of water contents results in dehydration. And it occurs when you use or you lose more fluid than what you take in. And when that happens, there are unfortunate adverse effects.
So Lana, let me ask you a quick question though. Which of our products have the hydration components in them?
Oh, we have the best products, and V3 and V-Slim actually has those ingredients.
The freeze-dried coconut water.
Tell me about it. I call it the miracle plant.
Yeah, you're from the Philippines, you know all about coconuts.
Oh, it is a major plant. It's worldwide, and I have to tell you, you have to drink it. You don't have to feel thirsty, because as you replenish these vital nutrients when you drink our products, you're actually avoiding dehydration, and dehydration has a lot of adverse effects, especially long-term adverse effects. And ladies and gentlemen, what are the long-term side effects or adverse effects of dehydration? You probably won't notice it until you have the problem. One of them is it increases your propensity of developing kidney stones, urinary tract infections, kidney infections, constipation, and a lot of continence problems. But we will be able to avoid that with the use of our product in V3 and V-Slim.
Yeah, you know, I was on a jungle survival training course once. This was back in 1994. And we got to learn from an Australian Special Forces, I can't remember whether they call them Rangers or whatever he was, but we learned, I was in Borneo, so East Malaysia, and we learned to actually give IVs with a coconut in the jungle. They did it even in World War II, when the Australians and British and US soldiers were fighting over there in World War II. If they ran out of IV fluid, they would tap into a coconut, because coconut water is virtually identical to blood plasma. Did you guys know that? So if you run out of IV fluid, go grab a coconut. Anyway, but yeah, V3 and V-Slim, super hydrators. They've got the freeze-dried coconut water and all the electrolytes and everything you need to stave off hydration. I've got a question for Dr. Baker now. I wanted you to touch on, for me, again, one of my personal favorite products is the Neuro. Neuro's got some amazing ingredients in it, well clinically proven ingredients in it, and because James has such a wide range of clinical experience, I wanted him to touch on Neuro and some of the experiences he's had with that, some of the information he can share with us on the ingredients in Neuro.
Thank you very much. This happens to be one of my favorite ones as well. But as you all know, this is our product that helps us with memory and clarity and concentration, focus, those kind of things, and obviously it does those things very, very well. Now, I like to teach people that the 5 main ingredients that has been so artistically put into this product, they're called nootropes, each in their own right. Nootropes is a term that was coined back in 1972 by a Romanian chemist, of all things. It basically means to restart the mind, or to get the mind going. And that's exactly what it does. The 5 nootropes that are in that, you want to touch on those just real briefly?
Yeah, please.
The first one, acetylcholine, is, and any of you can look in the packages and some of our flyers that we have and see that acetylcholine occurs naturally in our bodies. But as we have enough birthdays, we end up losing the effectiveness and amount of acetylcholine. So in Japan, years ago, they developed a supplement to help replace this. And originally it was used to help treat stroke and dementias, actually. And what it does is it stimulates, or it helps to produce phosphatidylcholine. You've heard me, and I think some of the others use that term before. That's what makes up the cell membranes in our body, specifically our neurons or nerve cells. So very important to protect us from the damages of our environment that can lead us to abnormal mental function. It's been used to treat Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease, as well as ADHD. It can be given in IV, oral, or IM forms. Something I thought was really interesting in an article I pulled, it said that it's shown to actually decrease recovery time in people after having strokes or closed head injuries. I know working emergency rooms, like Dr. Sabo and I both have through the years, anything that can help with those things are pretty remarkable. Ginkgo, real quickly. Ginkgo biloba, most of us have probably heard of before. It comes from one of the longest living trees in the entire world, native to Japan, China, some parts of Korea. In the 1700s, it was introduced here in the United States and parts of Europe. But the extract of that ginkgo leaf is pretty amazing. It's been used for hundreds of years to help with memory-type disorders. There was actually a study done at the University of Maryland Medical Center just not too long ago that showed that taking this seems to decrease the nerve damage in patients that are being studied with early Alzheimer's disease. So that's remarkable. Special interest of mine, Alzheimer's in general. I'm an internist. I'm used to seeing that way too often, and we've got to make a difference in that disease, and I think we will.
All right, thanks a lot. Oh, you got more?
I'll just touch on a bit more.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, Bacopa, he'd asked me to focus on just a little bit. Bacopa is an amazing antioxidant for one thing, but also it helps promote brain function, those kind of things, and it's been written about for many years. It's an aquatic plant that grows in southwestern part of India as well as parts of Australia and some in South America, but it's been used as a traditional medicine in India since actually the 6th century AD. Same thing there, it's been used for many things: anxiety, stress, mood disorders, Alzheimer's, dementia, ADHD again. So remarkable ingredient there as well. And so there are multiple trials been done on that I won't go into, but several of them in India and also other parts of the world. And, if it's okay, before I finish on that, just one really quick story on that. I have a young man in my practice that wants to go to medical school. He's been rotating with me for over a year now. On Tuesdays, he's with me. He's about 25 years old. Didn't score just real well on his admission test to medical school. We call that an MCAT test. And very intense. If any of you out there are physicians, you know what I mean. It's a tough test. Didn't score real well on the first time he took it, and they usually always encourage you to take it several times as you're going through college. And that was one of the main reasons why keeping him out of medical school. I told him about the time, just before his time, take it the second time, had him take neuro. I don't know if I told you that. 2 a day on his neuro for about 2 weeks before he took his MCAT test again. And this young man not only told me he did not have the brain and mental fatigue he had studying, preparing, and during the test as he did the first time. He scored in the 50th percentile the first time he took the test, over the 75th percentile the second time he took the test, 2 weeks after taking neuro. So don't let anybody out there tell you that these products with Vasayo are not making a difference in people's lives. This young man probably is going to be able to get into medical school now because of that grade he made. He may not have been able to do otherwise.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And if you guys have your apps, open up the PDF files on these products and read through the ingredient list as we're talking about it. It'd be a good way for you to learn the words, learn the verbiage, things like that. So you just learned how to use your apps now. Open them up. Let's use them. All right? Now, Tim, Dr. Snyder, I know you wanted to talk about Renew, but you already had your time. So I think I challenged you a little bit when I wanted you to talk about Vitox. I mean, I think it's one of our most underrated products. I think you feel the same way. But tell us why. I mean, we're surrounded with carcinogens. It's on our clothing. It was in our shampoo and hair care. Everything that we did this morning when we woke up, it's there. Tell us why Vitox is so important.
Right. So, scope of the problem. Wasn't it a Canadian chemist? Are you sure it was Romanian? All right, yeah. Anyway, the other thing I'm thinking is like, why don't we have those couches up here where we could be sitting on the bed? Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about is Renew, because I love Renew. But, all right, I'll simmer down. So now, I'm not going to talk about ingredients, but what I am going to talk about is the scope of the problem. And the scope of the problem is huge. I mean, some of you say, I don't feel toxic. Your husbands or wives may not agree with you, but you don't feel toxic. But we all are toxic. You know, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I remember the first Earth Day. And I remember watching these films of all these pollutants being dumped into the rivers and the smokestacks. And so now we feel much more comfortable, don't we? And the sad truth of the matter is that our water isn't necessarily cleaner. I mean, think about Flint, Michigan. Think about New Jersey, where they have almost 60% of the homes with lead pipes. Think about what you put on your skin. See, we didn't used to think that if you put something on your skin that it ended up in your bloodstream. Guess where it goes? It goes into your bloodstream. And those of you that are out there that are still using aluminum-based antiperspirants, don't. There's a reason why the things that we put on our body ends up in our bloodstream. And they've actually looked at breast tumors, breast cancer. And so a woman will take a shower, shave underneath her arms, and then apply aluminum. So not only have you set up the perfect opportunity for that aluminum to go directly into the bloodstream. So my bottom line is the first thing that you can do for any kind of toxicity is to avoid it. Unfortunately, in our world, we cannot. Now, we don't have a big problem, but we have a bigger problem than we thought we had. In fact, if you want to know why, there are really two issues that we're dealing with right now. Number one is heavy metals. So lead, mercury, and aluminum. Those are the big ones. And they're causing big, big problems. The second one is glyphosate, which is Roundup. All right. When you decide you're going to go green and healthy and buy organic, it's great. Because when you get organic, you're actually getting 20% less glyphosate than what you thought you were getting. In other words, it still has 80% of the Roundup that conventionally farmed produce has. So we can't really get away from it. The other problem with the glyphosate is that it is actually an antibiotic that goes into the soil, and that antibiotic actually prevents that tomato from taking up the trace nutrients or the trace minerals. In fact, there have been some studies which have looked at tomatoes, and one of the best and healthiest ingredients in tomatoes is lycopene. They have actually shown that we can go to the grocery store and buy tomatoes that have 0 lycopene in them. When it comes to trace minerals, we're only getting about 10% of the equivalent minerals that we had in a carrot from, say, even 50 years ago. So we have a problem. One of the great things about the product is that it does replenish the trace minerals. One of the other issues really is, besides talking about the nutrients that will actually pass through our skin, we have a problem with 2 diseases, and they hit both ends of the age spectrum. Number 1 is autism. And it's predicted that we are soon to see autism in 1 in 5 children. And we think that it's probably due to metal poisoning. Not necessarily from vaccines, so don't get freaked out about vaccines. But our environment is so polluted that we need to figure out a way to rid our bodies from these toxic chemicals. We also have seen an extraordinary rise in neurologic disease as cause of death. So we're looking at Alzheimer's for women, but the rate at Parkinson's disease in men is extraordinarily high. In fact, neurological death will overtake probably cancer and cardiovascular disease in the near future. And we think it's probably because of, in women, it's most likely aluminum, and in men it's either lead or mercury. So I want you to, number 1, avoid. Number 2, obviously a product like Vitox is not optional anymore. I hope, if anything, I've given you pause to think about what you put on your body and in your body. And I think Vitox needs to be part of everyone's armamentarium, because we do have to protect ourselves from our environment. Thanks.
I agree. I waited a long time to produce a product like Vitox. I knew exactly what I wanted to put in there. It is a huge problem. It's a huge issue, and Vitox can help a lot of people. Please do not underestimate Vitox. It's one of our less expensive products, and the benefits it can bring are just tremendous. Huge. Steve, saved you for last. You're an ER physician, right? Working in ER. You know about sleep deprivation.
I do, or I used to. I work one night a month now, so it's much better, yes.
You know, I was reading an article one time where it said that about 22% of automobile accidents are caused by people falling asleep at the wheel or dozing off. Machine factory workers, again, about 28% of machine accidents in warehouses and things are caused by people falling asleep on the job and things like that. So I want to talk a little bit about sleep. What have you noticed in the ER? What ingredients in sleep do you like best? What experiences do you have with sleep? Tell us a little bit about sleep.
Sure. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you for all these great products. You know, as I say, I have my own testimonial on the sleep product. I think it's a great product. I never thought I had a problem sleeping. I thought waking up 4 or 5 times a night, staring at the clock, I just thought that was normal. That was my normal. Now I get to sleep quicker, I stay in a deeper sleep, and I get up much more refreshed in the morning. And talking about the night shift, I take that when I take my nap before the night shift, helps me get a few hours sleep, and then when I get back in the morning and want to go to sleep, it definitely helps me with the sleep as well. So there are 5 ingredients in this great product, in this sleep product. I'm just going to go briefly one by one and talk a little bit about how each of them helps the sleep cycle. The first one here is melatonin. Melatonin is really the key ingredient. It comes from an area of the brain called the pineal gland, and it's manufactured there. So when you're ready to go to sleep, the body tells the brain, hey, we need more melatonin to go to sleep. So it's drawn in from the bloodstream into the brain. It's increased, and you get to sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, it says, hey, we don't need that anymore. And it takes the melatonin out of the brain, puts it in the bloodstream. Now, interestingly enough, I read a study recently that talked about blind people and how their synchronization of their sleep cycle is just out of sync. So what they did is they gave people melatonin, these blind people melatonin at night, and it really helped and showed to improve their sleep cycle. The next ingredient, GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter in the brain, and it helps with kind of making you in a, not depressed, but a depressive state, a relaxed state, and helps with sleep. And similar to melatonin, what it does is when you're ready to go to sleep, you want more of that depression, that relaxation. So what the body says is, hey, give me more of that GABA, and brings it more into the brain. And then when you're ready to wake up, it kind of kicks it back out. And again, that's GABA. Another interesting thing about GABA is there are receptors in the brain. There's 3 receptors. The one receptor, GABA receptor, actually increases that relaxation, the sleep phase. And sleep medicines such as Xanax and Valium and barbiturates, which are used to help with sleep, actually bind at that receptor. The other 2 receptors actually help keep you awake. And the third of the key ingredients is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And I think I mentioned to you before, as an emergency doctor, it excites me because I use it in my practice for Tylenol overdose. It's kind of that antidote. What not GABA, what NAC does is it detoxifies not only your brain but your liver, and hence in Tylenol overdose, and it replenishes the body of that great substance, glutathione, that Tracy was talking about this morning in the Eternal product, a great antioxidant and detoxification substance. And NAC replenishes the glutathione. It also increases glutamate, which also helps you relax. And the final 2 ingredients here are 2 B vitamins. The first one is B2, which helps with glutathione, again, as in the Eternal. And talking with Tracy, he actually told me that he put this vitamin B2 in the sleep product because when you're sleep deprived, your red blood cells kind of shrink. They become what they call microcytic. And it's thought that vitamin B2 can help, what did you tell me?
Increase blood flow and oxygen level to the brain.
In the brain,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the last one, vitamin B6, it actually helps with the GABA production. We talked about that. And that, again, does regulate the sleep cycle. So thank you. What a great product.
Thank you. So I want you guys to be perfectly honest with me because I want to explain something. I get excited, so I have to stand up. I can't sit down and talk. How many here has tried sleep and it hasn't worked for you? Be honest. I want you to raise your hand. There's 1, 2. So there's probably a dozen on that side. Maybe close to a dozen or half a dozen on that side. We talked about CBD today, right? Melatonin is a hormone. Hormones need receptors, right? They have to plug and fit into receptor sites. What does CBD do? Enhances those receptor sites. If you've tried melatonin before and it hasn't worked for you, if you've tried our sleep and it hasn't worked for you, try our sleep with the CBD and watch what happens. All right?